All right, what is going on, Coin Observatory? What's going on, everyone? Thank you for tuning into today's workshop. I'm going to be going over the CME Gap fills. I'm going to be going over probably the most reliable weekend trading strategy for Bitcoin itself. This thing has proven to be profitable for a while, and every gap has filled. Every weekend gap has filled except for one. I was wrong about a gap previously. This one I thought this was going to be a separation gap right here, but it wasn't, right? And it went back up and it filled. We'll go over some of these gaps. We'll go over what they mean. I want you guys to know, for starters, I have the XBT USD, which is the BitMEX chart on top, and I do have the yellow line as an overlay of the CME chart, right? And anytime we see these big deviations from the CME chart, that's going to be a weekend. Real quickly, what is CME? It's the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and it's the BitMEX of big banks, right? So if you're JP Morgan, or if you're a hedge fund in the US and you want to leverage derivatives, there's the BTC1 chart. If you want to trade Bitcoin futures, you use the futures on CME. You can't use BitMEX. So what happens on CME? CME stops trading Friday 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, and they resume trading on Sunday, I believe 4 p.m. Central or 5 p.m. Central. I've got the trading hours in the article that I wrote. The article is in a link in the video description, so make sure to read that. So these guys, these big banks, they typically don't want to get liquidated, right? And we've seen them kind of manipulate price action. This is a chart from the article itself. And we've seen them, it's called, some will call it manipulation, some won't. But what they're doing is they'll sell a lot of BTC on spot or buy a lot of BTC on spot to protect themselves before they resume trading, at some point before they resume trading, or at some point after they resume trading, just to match the gap, right? It's a gap fill strategy. Here you're going to be able to see price action deviated up over the weekend, and it kind of came back down to match the CME line. Here we had a breakdown, and when the weekend resumed, right, this was weekend price action, price retraced back up. Here we see these in the BART formation, right? We see a bullish BART. It goes up, it comes right back down, actually comes down below CME price during the weekend. Here we see another one. These were just very bullish wicks. Here's another BART formation. So that's where this kind of weekend price action comes from, where we get a big move up and then a big retrace, kind of like nothing happened, just a bunch of liquidations. And what's causing this is the CME gap fill. Last weekend we had a bit of a retrace during the gap. Let me make sure you guys are in here. Oh, everyone. I'll restart. New link. Copy video URL. All right, we're gonna start over. It's only been 4 minutes, which is not bad. All right, guys. Do you have video? Can you guys see me? Drop me a comment. Awesome. Thanks, Christopher. All right, so I kind of started talking and kind of dove into the workshop, but I realized nobody was there, so I'm just going to go ahead and start over. Um, so what is the CME gap, right? What is the meaning of this? And why is it the most reliable weekend trading strategy? CME is the BitMEX of big banks in the U.S., right? So if you're a regulated bank, if you're a regulated hedge fund, you can't trade Bitcoin futures on BitMEX. You can't trade Bitcoin derivatives on Deribit. You can't do any of that. You have to use CME. And what happens over the weekend is CME stops trading on Friday at 5 p.m. Central Standard, and they pick up trading again on Sunday at 6 p.m. Central Standard. And I've got a link to all this information in the video. It's the Medium article we published maybe a month ago or so. Up top, I've got the XBT USD chart. Below, I have the BTC1, which is the Bitcoin CME futures. And the yellow line is the CME futures chart. So, or sorry, that's the yellow line is the CME price. We're gonna see deviations from the CME price, and most of these is weekend price action, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and make this XBT USD chart a little bigger. And anytime we see deviation, right here, we saw this was last weekend, and we had a dip, and I'm like, hey, this thing's looking good for a long. I wanted a long a little lower. I low leveraged the long here though. Wrote it up on low leverage, which was okay, but I closed out too soon. I did, especially yesterday when I thought, hey, you know, this might be a good time to short because we're gonna come back down for a CME gap fill. Where are we right now in terms of CME price? CME price closes 62.90, right? Go ahead and drop a price tag here, price label. Right, 62.88, 62.90 is what CME closed or stopped trading at on Friday. We can see that here on my yellow line. Right now, spot prices went quite a bit higher. Right, everything's, you know, we touched that 7K mark today. We kissed it yesterday as well. But I don't think this is sustainable right here. I do think we're gonna end up coming back down at some point to fill this gap. And why do I say that? I'm saying that because every gap has filled. And we're gonna go over a lot of these gaps. And sometimes it takes a little longer than just a weekend to fill them, like a week or so. And other times the volatility is so high over the weekend, right? We've seen these dumps and pumps happen over a weekend, and this is why that happens. Going over, this is just from the article. It's a picture that I posted in here. We can see these deviations here. This is a 4-hour chart where we see an upwards move and then a retrace back to CME, a downwards move and a retrace back to CME. Here's the infamous BART formations. Another weekend BART. Here we just saw some really bullish wicks that ended up retracing back down. This is probably more weekend price action. Here we've got another really big BART. You can see some more, right? This has just been, yeah, it's reliable. It happens all the time. It's all a matter of shorting the right top or long in the right bottom and doing it on the proper leverage to capitalize on this opportunity, right? And some gaps are not worth it. There's been times like 2 weekends ago where price would go up like 1%, down 1%. I didn't want to mess with it because it's not a big enough move when we're leveraging it. So it's just not worth it. One big wick in either direction it's just, yeah. I did not get faster internet. I moved to a new place, so different internet provider. The other one's supposed to be faster, just really bad. That's not what we're looking at. All right, so going over these CME gaps, I'm just gonna go ahead and go to like a daily chart on the BitMEX, and we are gonna dive into this. Let's go ahead and actually hop on to the CME chart real quick. All right, so what does a gap look like on the chart? And how do we know that a gap is filling or a gap has filled, right? This can be like critical information that you guys might want to know. I'm just going to use a raise to highlight some of these gaps, and we're going to highlight the duration, how long it took to get back to that to fill that gap price. So here we had a trading gap, all right? You guys can't see it. Sorry. There you go. We had a trading gap on the way down, right, at 42.03. CME stopped trading, went in a weekend. Spot prices kept dropping. What ended up happening was BTC price went back up, filled this gap at 42.03, and then continued on downwards. This area was really interesting because it was two gaps. So this was pretty interesting because there was two gaps. The first gap was at 40.70, right? Price broke down. There was another gap below it at 38.12. And what ended up happening is both gaps ended up filling. Here we're gonna highlight that. So price goes back up. Price goes back up, fills the 40.70 gap, and then retraces back down, fills the 38.53 gap, and so forth. And this happens. There's another gap here. We're not going to go over all the price action on these gaps, but we had a breakdown by the dip, retraces back up. So there's small moves to be captured, and sometimes there are big moves to be captured. And it's the big weekend moves that interest me more than the small ones, right? So this was a 20% upwards move, right? So I mean, that leverage at 3x can be great. That leverage at 25x could be amazing. The same thing here, right? So this was another big gap. This was a 13% move, right? So there's all these moves that some of them we've captured, some of them we haven't. One really nice gap, and that was what they gave us a really good long entry, was at 38.55, which was this one right here. All right, you guys remember we had to move down to 38.55, and I was like, hey guys, we need to long this area. This is a gap fill. There's a descending broadening wedge we're going to take off. That's actually in my Medium article as well. Moving on, right, more current price action. What's going on up here, which is where we've it's been interesting, right? We had a CME gap at 50.53, and price action broke out, went above, came back down, retraced, filled the gap, right? So how big of a move was this? I'm just gonna go from the wick, even though those are hard to catch. This is a 7% move, right? That's a pretty nice move. Right here is when the Bitfinex foot came out, and I was like, hey guys, we should consider hedging. This thing might not be as sustainable. And I was wrong about hedging there. And right, so this gap move back up was in 8% as well. So we're seeing 7-8% gaps. Which has been, I guess, typical in this range, right? Which kind of gives us something of expectations. We've also seen a 20% gap back here in this range, right? So we might be coming up one of this 20% gaps. I haven't really measured how far up we are from CME price. I think there's a good 10% here currently. So if this thing drops back down to fill this gap, 9.34, right? I mean, based on what we just saw, is it how possible, probable, improbable, right? A 9% move for a CME gap. Well, there's been two in this range, right? There has been two in this range. And yes, this would be a counter trend trade, right? And picking tops has been fairly difficult, right? It's for me at least. I had two shorts that got stopped out yesterday, and then Cam and I got into a short at like 69.78, just looking at the sell walls and buy walls, and I profit took half, and then stopped out on profits on the other half while I was sleeping. But it's been really hard to short Bitcoin recently. That's for good reason. I'm not going to talk about the fundamentals. I kind of mentioned some of this stuff in chat. But if you guys want to tune into these gaps, right? I mean, there's several ways to do this. You can run charts side by side, and come on. All right, here we've got CME at 62.90, and then BTC at 69, right? So here's our 62.90 on the CME chart. BTC's at 69.42, almost a 7 grand. So we can expect a move back down. Now, what happens if we don't fill the gap, right? If CME does not want to fill the gap, what's going to happen? Whoever's short on CME is going to get squeezed really, really hard. If there's been some heavy shorting in this range and they don't bring it back down, not only they're not going to get stop hunted, they're going to get liquidated, right? They're going to lose quite a bit. And same thing for the longs. So that's why we see these gaps happen. These big banks, they're going to do everything they can to protect their positions. And how futures and derivatives work on a larger scale with sophisticated instruments and investors and hedge funds is they hedge their bets. So they would long the future, short on spot, or sell spot, long the future, or short the future, long spot. So their exposure is kind of leveled off. And this is a time, weekends are a great example of that. Now, picking these stops, right, we can go on divergence. The only gap that hasn't filled was the breakaway gap, and I kind of identified that in my article, and it was way below, right? It was this one right here. This is the only gap that is not filled, and it was at 35.80. This is a breakaway gap. Are we gonna get a breakaway gap up here today at the trading range we're in? I don't think so. We have seen historically BTC make these upwards moves and kind of pull back down. I'll go ahead and show some. We've seen daily wicks, right? We've seen these big moves and then retraces. We just identified two of them that were in the same percent range. Go back to the daily. Whoa. So I do see a move back down to 9.4. You guys have questions? Shoot me some questions. I know it's only been 20 minutes, but I've highlighted the how the theory works. As for finding tops, I mean I've done everything. I've been trying to find tops with harmonics. I've been trying to find them on divergences. We're looking at the order books. It's hard right now. It's hard to find a BTC top, but layering into some shorts or some longs to fill the gap, I think that's a smarter idea than just doing one big entry at a high leverage. You guys ask me some questions. Now we have been seeing as well. So, but is this gap gonna fill? I believe it is. Right. I think we're headed back down to 62.90, and I think this is it's one of those short on futures like at 69. Then the high 69 is just based on the order book. I've been using Tensor quite a bit, right? So one thing we saw yesterday is, I'll show you guys. One thing we saw yesterday was these buy walls come in to kind of bring price back up. And as soon as those buy walls came in, this was right here. Just got to get this thing to load. This is frustrating. So you saw buy walls come in to prop the price up. Cam and I were monitoring this, right? We saw these walls come in, and then we saw price shoot up. Over here, this was shorts just filling the orders, right? So when these buy walls come in, they're trying to get more buyers to fill shorts. And then all of a sudden, this is how we know they were spoofing, is look at that. They kind of pulled the rug. And I was expecting a big drop yesterday here, and it didn't happen. So this is kind of like how a pump and dump works, right? I'm not saying Bitcoin's a pump and dump, but some of these moves are big moves up for just a retrace back down. So you had all this support, all this price action, bringing price back up. And here you got sell walls, shorts fill their orders, and next thing you know, all the bulls are gone, right? I mean, this thing had the potential of dropping all the way down to that, like, back to the 6,200 mark. And I haven't seen the buy walls come back in today to do the same thing. But so we've been really skeptical of unnatural price action, right? Yeah, and just kind of get a refresh on it. And here, once again, we're not seeing that support come back in. We're not seeing those buy walls coming in to prop the price up at all. If you guys can see this, and there's quite a bit more support than there was last night. But I do think a down move is imminent, right? Whether it's here or we try to make another high. What do I think about ADA now? I'll go with that. Sorry, it's not good enough of a trader to ask a question. Price action shorts we're filling it. We're up, and we can tell you just based on the buy walls, 69, 67 through 7K, right? This is where the buy walls came in to prop the price up. And here we saw some really big, nasty shorts on futures. I mean, these guys might close out in a few days when we retrace back down, right? And it's hard. I mean, you can't use formations. You can't. TD sequential is giving us a 9. You know, we can use TA, but we're trying to use every tool at our disposal right now to figure out where the stop is, because I've tried shorting based on harmonics. I got stopped out twice, right? I've got another harmonic pattern showing up here. It's a deep crab up top. I'll put that up on my chart. I wouldn't FOMO in ADA now, right? Where is ADA? Do I have it up? I'd wait for the pullback. Once it comes back into the entry zone, it might just be a throwback. I want to see what BTC and ETH do first. Going back to the BTC chart. Another interesting thing is, all right, so I mean, I think we're coming back down. We're definitely coming back down. Another interesting thing is, if you go to the daily chart, this marks, we're actually higher than the top of the channel that we were trading in all last year. If you guys remember last year's stops, do the horizontal line, go So this thing has bullishly surpassed all my expectations, right? And that's just what Bitcoin does when it turns bullish. Last year, I think we can call 58 was the bottom because we longed that a few times for pretty good profit. So last year we traded in this channel this whole time. We had several breakouts, and we traded this head and shoulder. We shorted here, we longed here, shorted here. So we traded all of this. Lido called this. I missed it. This big move down. Anyways, and this is where we're kind of stalling right now, right? We're stalling just a little bit higher, and like on the daily buy volume still increasing, which is good, but I can see us doing something like one of these candles where we went up to 71, went up to 71, came back down to 62, right? I mean, we've seen this happen in the past. When are bears gonna step up to selling? That's nice. That heat map I use 10 sword charts, 10swordcharts.com. I'm not good enough of a trader to ask a question. Most of this went over my head, but I wanted to watch anyway. Going over ADA. Alright, so ADA is doing like an ABCD bullish formation for an upwards retrace. It hit target 1 and came back down. So let's look at it on the Binance chart. Are you like leveraged ADA long or ADA spot? I think it still has some gas in the tank, right? Kind of trail the stop because I know it was 7% stop. So if you're like 2x, it's 14. That's pretty big. You maybe trail that stop up a little bit. We get a retest. There's also a bull flag that broke out, right? I think it's still early. BTC dominance kind of hit the top. I was checking it on today. It hit the top and turned back around. So I expect alts to kind of get a rally in. I want to wait this CME dip. I want to see if BTC coming down to fill that 62.90 gap is going to help alts or bring alts back down for a better entry. So that's what I'm looking for. Awesome. You guys have any more questions? More CME questions, like BTC specific? This is a CME workshop. What is H, Georgia? So yeah, Bitcoin dominance is going on the daily. It topped off on our previous resistance, right? And it's going to come back down. So we should see somewhat of an alt rally take place, right? But I want to wait to see a CME dip before I start firing off more signals. I was looking at like BAT, several other tokens. It went up, they kind of pulled back. BAT looks like it's at a 50% retrace, so it might be good for another long. Guys, it's not a power hour. You have CME workshop specific questions. I'll do power hour on Monday. How about that? I'm not gonna answer that. I said this come on, this is a workshop, guys. All right, well, fam, thank you all for tuning into this workshop. We get a lot of CME questions, a lot of hey, what's the gap? It's almost every weekend we get a lot of these questions. So now you guys know how to put these on your chart. So if you're on TradingView, you just add the compare. You do BTC1. It's gonna give you BTC futures, right? And you click on that. And now you got this line on your BitMEX chart telling you what's going on with the CME futures price. You can switch your time frame, get a better idea of what's happening. And yeah, so I do believe we're going to come back down to 62.90. I do believe this gap's going to fill. Based on the two previous gaps and since this bullish break that I previously highlighted, right? So here's one, here's another, and there was the 5400 one. Thanks, Georgia. Sorry, I just wanted to keep this. I mean, it's workshop centered instead of a power hour. We'll do power hour on Monday. Drop a comment on Discord. Let me know what's a good time for you guys for power hour. Do you want them like at noon, early evening, mornings? Let me know what's best. But as of now, I think my consensus is we're coming back down to that 62.90 mark. Figuring out where the top is. I don't know if I can spot it just yet. I mean, we've been watching volume. We had an hour of straight selling, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if you go up and like do another big wick again before we come down. One thing I'm seeing on harmonics. I'm seeing a deep crab. Right, so I'm seeing this deep crab with the top currently. I gotta redo this. There we go. So I'm seeing a deep crab, which is a bearish formation. Top says 7K. It's kind of retracing back down. Go ahead and do a little bit of that, right? Yeah. So that's one thing I'm seeing on harmonics. And yeah, so I've been trying to identify these tops. It hasn't been easy at all. And it's just Bitcoin's bullish. You can't really short it. But this is an opportunity to kind of come back in if you want to layer in another long. Buy the dip at 62, right? If we think it's going to keep going up, so 62.90 is most likely a buy. The short till then is just to capitalize on this weekend opportunity. We haven't had a gap this big in a while, so I'm pretty excited if this one plays out and we're leveraged right. It can mean some profits. So I had last short I put was like a 69. I was on XBTM and it didn't get quite as high, so like 69.80. Just a little higher than what I shorted back here yesterday. Yeah, this was yesterday. So we had another high today, and now we're doing. This looks like it might break out again. Looks like another bull flag or a falling wedge here, right? So we might see another up move. So I've gotten stopped out quite a bit, and I actually closed this one like down here, and then I had to stop there, and I woke up and it was gone. So it hasn't been easy. It's not. But I do think we're due for a downwards move. If we get back up into this range, and we start seeing like tweezer tops or wicks or those big sell walls, we can probably go off tensor. You don't want to front run your order. You want to know where the big boys are shorting, right? So it looks like we might test 70, 90. Right now is not a good opportunity for a long. I'd wait for 62.90. If you guys remember when we were trading above 38.55 and I said do not long it, we're going to long 38.55 because that's going to be a wedge retest and that's going to be a gap fill, right? And that was the trade that we got deleveraged on. This is one of those same things, right? So I wouldn't be layering in shorts now. It looks like you want to see where the big boys are shorting and try to get in with them. because like if somebody was to short 70.25 because that's where last high was, well guess what, there's nothing overhead, it's going to keep going straight up. So I would look in the retest of resistance, right, and like 10swordcharts.com. It's free. You can kind of see where these guys are layered in. So kind of hide behind the walls, figure out what the whales are doing. That's what we've been trying to do to kind of gauge what the market's really up to. Volume this weekend doesn't have me worried. It does. It does. This is scary, right? Like this big volume candle. It's scary. All right. Especially trying to short this move. It's huge. So we'll see how it plays out, right? You know, we have stop losses for a reason. And yeah, and if short gets stopped out, we come back down to 62.90, right? It's probably going to be a good opportunity for another long. It's just how markets are. I wouldn't limit long, Kevin. I wouldn't put a limit long anywhere. Once again, you got to figure out what the charts are doing. Wait for a confirmation. I did that yesterday. I had limits in and they filled, and I got stopped out for a short, right? So. I wouldn't set just limits. I'd set alerts. If somebody wants to set a limit, I mean, what was it? BTC USDC yesterday on Binance wicked down to like 5,100, and some people got their orders filled for some reason. So if you're gonna put limit longs, I'd have limit longs below this. But for now, let's keep an eye on this to see if you get more of a top. I mean, what's RSI doing? Are we getting a divergence? It could be, right? Not really a divergence on the 4 hour. The only bearish formation I'm getting is the deep crab that I showed you guys. Other than that, I mean, the 15 minutes got a little bear div. It's doing like failure swings. It's probably going to do another push up, though. It's just been relentless, right? So here we see in these lower lows on RSI with 2 higher highs on the chart. But these divergences haven't been very fruitful, right? So if you get another divergence, right, kind of try to fill a short up here. Another news for you guys along that ETH USD on the wedge retest. I'll go over that. That was a nice one. Let's go and get out of here. Right, Ether's breaking out again, which is good. I think, you know, we had this descending broadening wedge, right? We broke out. I said, hey guys, when you get a retest, you got the retest, and now it's up. How far up are we from the retest zone on ETH USD? 20%, right? If you guys were leveraged long on that, let's stop down here. I mean, if you're at 3x, right, you're doing awesome. If you're at 10x, you're crushing it. Yeah, I think the ETH breakout is just now beginning, and I think this wedge is gonna do something similar to what that BTC wedge did. My bullish target here is like 235 based on my moving averages. Let me do that. Oh, that's a bit next chart. ETHUSD. Yeah, so you know, I think we can get up to like 247 on ETH, possibly 380. I think I haven't seen targets this high from anybody else, but if we were to get up into that compared to like what BTC did and cleared most of last year's range, right? That the 235 is pretty possible. Big likelihood of that happening. And I'd mentioned that, hey, when BTC turns around, we're going to see an ETH move. Called it way too early. So yeah, 247 is a likely target on Ether. So I think so. What the CME gap fill will do is it's not necessarily help ETH USD, but it's gonna help ETH BTC, right? Because if Ether is on this tear and BTC is dropping, that's when we're gonna see ETH BTC make more gains. It's something we saw today. ETH BTC started, right? Did this, bullish engulfing candle, a little bit of a flag, possibly. It's not at resistance, right? Last time when I saw this, I was like, "Ooh, we missed a short." So I think it's got some up room. Yeah. So I think the CME gap's in play, and kind of look forward to buying that 6296, 6300 mark. Thank you guys for tuning into the workshop. Hope I answered your questions. Hope you got the setup. You guys still trying to figure out how to add like the compare or how to add the BTC one chart to overlay with your XBT. Just shoot me a message and I'll show you how. Yeah, hopefully this all plays out, and we will see you guys at 6290.